The Trump administration's foot dragging in bringing Abrego Garcia home is absolutely unacceptable. They illegally abducted him and got him out of the country in 72 hours. They can get him home in less than that. All they need to do is send somebody from the U.S. Embassy to the prison and have him released. After all, the United States is paying El Salvador to keep him there.
Meanwhile,
do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm suppose you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always saying that.
How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back?
Well, they'd love to have a criminal,
Yeah,
released.
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah,
they're sick. These are sick people.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl Mika, and we're back for another Red Cup Talks because this is where truth, pop culture, and politics meet. So I wanted to come on and talk about the El Salvadorian president visiting the White House. Now, normally this wouldn't be a thing. However, the El Salvadorian president knows that since Donald Trump has been sending all of the deportees down to that prison, the media was going to be on it. And the media wasted no time, the liberal media like TDS, CNN, yes, they wasted no time with asking dumb questions. However, before we get into that, I want you guys to see the Senator of Maryland, Chris Van Holland, and what he had to say, his little PSA that he put on X. And when I tell you it made no sense, it made no sense. They go harder for illegal aliens than they go for Americans. I want you guys to see this. Watch.
The Trump administration's foot dragging in bringing Abrego Garcia home is absolutely unacceptable. They illegally abducted him and got him out of the country in 72 hours. They can get him home in less than that. All they need to do is send somebody from the U.S. Embassy to the prison and have him released. After all, the United States is paying El Salvador to keep him there. This was a 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court, and now they need to stop foot dragging and bringing him back. This is contemptuous action. I will leave it to the judge as to when contempt charges need to be filed, but he needs to come home, and he needs to come home now. I met just the other day with his wife, with his mother, with his brother. The family's traumatized. They're worried, of course, minute to minute about what might happen to him in that notorious prison. And the Trump administration needs to get him home, and they need to stop lying about this case.
You saw the disgraceful senator there tell you all about this loving man. This man was not an upstanding citizen. He had been in trouble with the law twice, and he was a gang member, and an immigration judge said so. Why do you keep calling this his home? The man is an El Salvadorian resident and citizen. However, I want to go ahead and get into the El Salvadorian president's visit here at the White House and his interaction with the media. Watch.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
well, I'm suppose you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always saying that.
How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? And that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal,
Yeah,
released.
there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
All right, so you guys heard that dumb comment by CNN reporter Caitlin Collins. When I tell you that woman just has TDS, she has it at stage 4. She should be in the back row of the press room, right by the bathroom, because I'm telling you, she doesn't deserve to get any questions from the president, really, honestly and truly. And then the other reporter that chimed in to say, why don't you release him to the streets? Sir, why would he do that? Why the lefties want criminals on the street? Why they want to release them to the public? I don't know, but it keeps happening. Now, keeping with CNN, Dana Bash had a whole panel and decided to invite Caitlin Collins to come on to explain her question. And it got even dumber from there. When I tell you I don't understand it, I digress. Watch.
Caitlin, you were there. You were asking some of the questions of the president and tried to ask a question of the Salvadoran leader. What were your takeaways?
I mean, essentially, they are making very clear that this Maryland man who was, by the own Justice Department's acknowledgement, mistakenly deported to El Salvador in recent weeks, that he will not be returned to the United States. That was the argument that the president was making as they were offering their own interpretation of that Supreme Court filing that said that the administration must facilitate Albrego Garcia's return to the United States. And they were essentially arguing that that was not the case, that then the courts would be trying to intervene in foreign policy, which is strictly in the purview of the president of the United States. And Stephen Miller, who, of course, is one of the president's top advisors, was there standing next to me inside the Oval Office and was saying that that is essentially a question that is better positioned to the president of El Salvador. I then asked President Bukele his interpretation of that, and he essentially likened it to smuggling a terrorist back into the United States if he returned this man who was mistakenly deported to his country and is still being held there based on a filing that we saw over this weekend. And so he was essentially scoffing at the idea of returning him. And so I think one thing coming out of that was clear, as we're in the middle of this huge court fight between this man's attorneys and the White House and the Justice Department on this, is that they do not plan to ask the president of El Salvador to return this man or to help facilitate his return as he's being held in that notorious mega prison in El Salvador.
No, they don't plan to help, facilitate, or whatever else because he's not an American citizen. Why would we do this? Why would we spend tax dollars when we already sent him down there? Why would we take him from his home country? And he was supposed to be deported anyway. So why would we bring him back?
He was deported to El Salvador after being granted protection in 2019 here in the United States by an immigration judge, essentially saying out of fear of persecution that he could not be sent back to El Salvador. And so certainly a hardline stance that we just saw coming out of the Oval Office on this, which is notable, Dana, because just a few days ago on Air Force One, after that Supreme Court ruling came out that had some confusion in it in terms of, essentially giving the White House a deadline to have this man returned. The president said if the Supreme Court said that someone had to be returned, that he would abide by that ruling. And so I asked him about that just now during that back and forth inside the Oval Office. And clearly their position on this has changed, which Stephen Miller has been articulating and saying that they do not plan to return this man.
Okay, so I'm starting to think that this woman here just doesn't know law, doesn't know how to read law, even though she has a degree. Maybe she has the same degree that Jasmine Crockett has. I don't know. This woman adds her own spin to everything. All right. I don't even know if she read the documentation, but the documentation clearly states that the man was supposed to be deported. The documentation clearly states that the lower courts cannot tell Donald Trump what to do. And the law clearly states that Donald Trump has the authority over foreign affairs. Like, I don't understand what she doesn't get about it, but it's CNN. They refuse because they all have TDS. And I'm telling you right now, they will never admit that this whole story is a farce. Now, last but not least, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump's advisor, decided to go on Fox News. And the Fox News reporter decided that he wasn't going to tell everything the way that I guess Stephen Miller wanted him to tell it, or wanted him to tell the facts. And when I tell you Stephen Miller decided he was going to tell it for him, he sure enough did. Watch.
Number one, DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So he appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place.
Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please. Tell me.
I mean, he said what he said. Fox News, CNN, ABC, NBC, it doesn't matter. If you get the facts wrong, you get the facts wrong. And Bill here, he got it wrong. So Stephen corrected him. It is what it is. Yeah, Stephen Miller, he plays no games, all right? Like I said, he's the advisor to Donald Trump, and at the end of the day, he is correct. This man had a deportation order. So where are we supposed to deport him to? Mexico? He's not from Mexico, okay? Where are we supposed to deport him to? Venezuela? They don't even want to take their own people. They're sitting in Gitmo. So where is this man supposed to go? Let him go back home. If his people will take him back, why not? And since he is a criminal and he was in a gang there and he is in a gang here, yeah, he's going to go to that maximum prison that the liberals all hate. Now they're calling the Salvadorian president all types of dictators and he's following behind Trump and this and that. I want you to see this video of the Salvadorian president getting love in the streets from the Salvadorian people. Watch. All right, so you guys just saw that. So here are my thoughts. Let's pour it up. The mainstream liberal media wanted you to believe all of these things, but when the president himself, the El Salvadorian president, came to the White House, he was in line with everything Trump was in line with, and that angered the media. They're saying that he's a dictator. They're saying that he's doing Trump's bidding. I mean, they're saying all kinds of things. They could not understand why this man just doesn't want to go against Donald Trump. And it's because this man sees the same thing that Donald Trump sees, a nation going awry, a nation ran over by criminals and terrorists. The El Salvadorian president turned a whole country around. All right. Now, if they're saying that people come here to seek asylum, then they won't be coming here anymore to seek asylum because now they have a country that's actually free from crime. Even as of late, you have people like Ratchet Crockett going out there and saying that who's going to pick your cotton? We're not doing it. They're supposed to be the people of human rights, and they're supposed to be the party of compassion. I don't see it at all. No jobs, no wealth, no sense of growth, while bringing in a whole underclass of people who they plan on doing the same exact thing to. They're not the party of compassion, and they definitely don't care about human rights. All they care about is more votes, more money, more big wigs for people like Jasmine Crockett. However, I could be wrong. So you guys get down in the comments and like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what you thought about the president of El Salvador coming to the White House to meet with Donald Trump and his cabinet and talking to CNN, okay, and answering all those stupid questions that they had to answer. And then let me know what you thought about seeing the president of El Salvador in the streets and the people cheering and taking pictures with him. Also, let me know what you thought about the senator of Maryland going on a PSA on X talking about bringing this man back home when he isn't from here. Sir, he's an El Salvadorian resident. Like, comment, and subscribe. It's your girl, Mika, and I'm out. Peace.
Wake up.